It was not good. No, I spoke to him, and he's fine. They're fine.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Behavioral Arts. My name is Spidey, and I use my degree in sociology and psychology, my certifications in criminal interrogation and body language analysis, and over 10 years' experience as an award-winning mentalist to teach people behavioral analysis and practical psychology on stages and television shows all over the world. The president of France, Emmanuel Macron, has been all over the news lately for a strange event that took place just last week when his plane landed in Vietnam. As the doors opened, cameras caught the hands of his wife, Brigitte Macron, shoving him in the face as he took a step back, smiled to the cameras, and then stepped back into the plane to deal with the situation. The Élysée Palace was quick to respond. Almost immediately, they put out a statement claiming that the video was a deep fake, and shortly after amended that statement to say that the couple was just being playful. To add to these matters, American President Donald Trump was asked about the situation at a press conference and gave a very interesting response to what happened as well. But what do their body language, facial expressions, and word choice reveal? Was this actually just a playful moment, or was there something else going on that they're trying to conceal? Let's dive right in. Now, this analysis is going to be a little different from other topics that we've covered because there's a direct contradiction. It appears like one thing is happening, but the palace has stated that no, that's not what's happening at all. They're just being playful. It's A or B. There's less nuance here, and therefore my conclusion is much more decisive based on a lot of behaviors. So let's look at this moment step by step and break down what's happening in his reaction. So the first thing you'll notice is the shove itself. It's not a gentle brushing on the shoulder. It's not the back of the hand like this. It's not a tap. It's two hands in the face with this outward and upward shove. So there's more than one element here that steps away from playful. First, it's that it's both hands. Typically when we're playful, it's this one-handed little thing. That's typically, not always. In this case, it's both hands. Then we have the area that it's happening, which is the face. Again, typically when we're being playful with someone, it's a nudge, a tap on the shoulder, the arm, something along those lines, maybe a little belly tap, but rarely the face. That's such a personal space that it implies that there's something a little bit more serious going on. But you know what? In their case, that could be just the way that they joke around. Maybe. Finally, we have the gesture itself. It's not a brushing, it's not a slight little tap, it's not a nudge. It's the hands shoving up and away from herself. So it appears on the surface that due to all these reasons, it doesn't have the vibe of a playful or, fun little interaction. But let's look at his reaction to it because it gives us quite a bit more information than hers. The first thing I want you to notice is that as a reflex, his hands come up, almost to grab her own hands. Now, when we're being playful with someone and we get a little nudge or a brush, you don't typically respond by trying to grab their arm or push it away. This is a defense mechanism. The hands are coming up to defend himself. Second, and more importantly, notice the timing of the smile. He doesn't smile as a response, as an interactive moment. He's pushed, the hands come up, he takes a step back, turns to the cameras, and then he smiles. So the smile doesn't come until he acknowledges the cameras or the people that are there. In this interaction with her, there's no smile. There's nothing on his face that indicates we're having a fun, teasing moment over here. None. Let's also examine the way he's leaning back, because it's not just a lean, it's an actual step back. Now, Emmanuel Macron is right-handed, which means that his dominant leg is probably also his right one. And after the shove, you notice that right leg takes a step back. This is pretty common in altercations or situations where there's a tension and we try to distance ourselves. We often see that dominant leg go back. It's a fight or flight response. Whether you're going to respond with aggression or get out of there, that dominant leg is getting ready to act. The other thing I want you to notice is the response of the crew, right? If this was a joking moment where they're joking around, it's likely that on the crew members, especially the two on our right, who could see what's going on, we would see some kind of looking at them, laughing, smiling, like, okay, here they go again, being silly with each other. But that's not what's happening at all. In fact, I would describe what's happening as mostly avoidant. The gentleman is kind of looking down a little bit, not looking directly at them. He only looks up at the end to see if the president's ready to go. And then the woman, who's more towards the front, turns away from it quickly. We see a grooming gesture with her hair as she steps down the stairs. But again, nothing indicates that they're witnessing this playful moment. But the thing that I want to focus on the most is his reaction after the shove, right? Because he steps back, he turns to the cameras, he smiles and waves before stepping off again. So let's talk about this smile and wave, this kind of immediate social element. There is a lot of research on the behavioral response to public embarrassment and the behaviors that we see as a result of embarrassment. And there are a lot of behaviors that are common in these situations, but the most common, and most commonly in this order, is that first the gaze goes down. And this is most likely that negativity setting in, right? Embarrassment is a negative emotion, and typically in negative moments, things go down. We even say you're feeling down. That's a negative thing. Whereas positivity is usually upwards, right? We celebrate upwards. We jump for joy. So that's just that negativity setting in, maybe a little bit of that shame setting in. Then after the downwards gaze, which is just a couple of seconds, there are two things that likely follow that. One of them is a controlled smile. So as opposed to what we call a Duchenne smile, which is a real, relaxed, full-face smile, this is a tight, social smile. And at the same time, or seconds later, there's this gaze shift, which is the person kind of looking around the room, likely to try to assess what's going on, what's the response, who noticed, what's going on, what's the reaction to this. And then the last thing we commonly see is the head turning away, so kind of leaving the situation. So if you could break it down into three components, it's negativity, social, and then disengagement. That's typically the way we respond to embarrassment. Of course, this isn't the way it always goes down. It could have some of these elements, it could have other elements like face touching is very common in embarrassment, adapters or pacifiers, these are self-soothing gestures that we make to calm ourselves down in stressful situations, are very often seen in embarrassment. So it could be a mix of these things, but there's usually a pattern that looks more or less like what I just described. If you want to see a really good example of this cluster of behaviors, just 2 months ago, there was an interview where Alec Baldwin and his wife, Hilaria Baldwin, were answering some questions on the red carpet, and she cut him off by saying something like, "When I'm talking, you're not talking," and we saw almost exactly this sequence. The eyes darted down for a moment, then he had a very muted social smile. It wasn't even a smile, it was almost like the mouth was just like this very small smirk as he looked up with the shifty eyes to the camera. And after that, it wasn't immediate that the head turned away. He had this other step in the middle where he brought the chin up like this, which is often something that we see when someone's trying to, bring their morality up. And then he got shifty and then literally walked away. So it's almost exactly that. And then there was another moment in that same interview where we saw the same thing, this time with a bit more of a smile. So again, eyes down, shifty eyes, looks at the camera. That's that social element. This time he did have a smile, and then he just turned back to her and let her continue to talk. So at different moments, we saw different variations of this, but these are very good examples of this cluster of behavior.
You're a winner. Oh my God, when I'm talking, you're not talking. Sorry. No, when I'm talking, you're not talking. This is why, yes, we'll have to just cut him out of the show. No, I mean, I think this is a really raw show. No, we just cut all that part out.
Cut me out.
Cut you out. When you're trying to make it silly, we cut it out. No, I mean, I think that every day, because we like routine, and I think anybody who's a parent knows that a routine is king.
Okay, but going back to Emmanuel Macron, the interesting thing there is you'll notice when he saw the camera. It's actually as he's being shoved. So it kind of mushes the entire experience into split seconds, because you'll notice he makes direct eye contact with the camera as he's being pushed. So it's like he kind of goes straight to that social element, because for him, being at the level that he is as a public figure, he immediately goes to, oh my God, the camera's there. So we see him see that camera, and pretty much instantly, we skip that gaze, we go straight to, it's not even shifty eyes. He's not looking around, he's looking straight to the camera. So the social element that usually is scanning the room, here it's to the camera, and we go to that smile, which if you look at it, it's not a full-faced, relaxed Duchenne smile. Joy or happiness is one of the universal expressions of emotion, meaning pretty much everywhere in the world, regardless of what society you're looking at, they recognize smiles as looking more or less the same. And the research has shown this again and again and again. And two of the distinguishing features is that it's not just the mouth that smiles, it's the cheeks as well. They go up and the eyes squint a little bit, causing what we call crow's feet on the side of the eyes like this. The eyes smile as well. If you look at Macron's smile in that circumstance, the lips are being pulled to the side, so that element is there, but there isn't a real rising of that smile, of the cheeks, and there's really not much going on in the eyes. If you block the mouth, you can't tell that he's smiling just by looking at the eyes. So although nothing is certain or absolute, it really seems like this is very much a social smile. The other element to this that suggests that it's not a genuine smile is how fast it goes away. So typically with real emotions, the emotion builds as does the expression. So as something happy or joyful happens, that smile slowly sets in, we hold it for a couple of seconds, and then it slowly fades away, because that's how emotions work. When we're trying to do it as a social gesture, when we're trying to mimic an emotion, we don't really know how to have that curve up and curve down. We turn the switch on and then we turn it off. So it looks more like this kind of ding smile that comes on, and then bam, it just goes away. And if you look at it here, it fades away in a second. He looks at the camera as he's smiling, then as it turns away, it's gone as he steps back into the plane to deal with the situation. So at this point, if we stop and make two columns, one is this is actually a negative confrontation, and the other is they're just being playful. There really isn't much to put on this side so far behaviorally. Remember, we always look for clusters. One indication isn't much to go on, so we want to look for more things that give us more confidence. And in this case, it seems like a lot of these things line up more with an actual negative interaction. Now in this next part, when they step off the plane and come down the stairs, I don't think anybody needs a body language analyst to point out what's happening. He stands at the top stair, he holds out his arm like this for her to take his arm, take his hand, so they can walk down together, and she sees it, by the way. So I don't really buy the narrative that, oh, she didn't see it. No, she sees it, because we see her look at his arm. I mean, he's standing right in front of her. She mouths something, and now they walk down separately as she's looking down. So yeah, that was a refusal. She saw the hand and she made the decision to say, no, I'm good. And he had to walk down, separate. Now there is footage of them coming down the stairs of a plane holding hands. It's not enough for me to say that they do this every single time they come off a plane, but it is something that they have done. And when he's standing there like this and she's ignoring it, she's pretty much sending a pretty clear image. Here's the thing, she's an intelligent woman, and she knows that even if she has a good reason to not hold his hand, she knows what it looks like when she refuses it in front of the cameras like that. It's embarrassing for him. Finally, before we move on from this moment, I also do want to talk about the fact that after the smile and the wave, he stepped back towards her briskly, right? The smile went away and he stepped back towards her. It wasn't like this playful, like we're continuing to be playful. He stepped away from the cameras, out of sight, to go deal with something. I mean, just use your intuition here. How often do you think that would happen in a positive situation, right? If we're being playful and the cameras were there, like, come on out, that playfulness would continue. It's very unlikely that I would smile, then shut it off and just walk right back towards you. That seems a lot more like there's still something to deal with here. Maybe he's stepping off and saying, okay, listen, let's put this on pause, the cameras are on. There's this moment of embarrassment. We're seeing it in all the behaviors to the point where he's stepping away from the camera to deal with it. So after I saw footage of the incident, I was almost certain, near certain, that it wasn't playful. It has too many telltale signs of an actual negative altercation. But after seeing the interview with President Donald Trump, that almost certain was locked in 120%, which is more certain than I think I've ever been with anything. Let's take a look at what he was asked and what he answered.
This week there was a video on board a plane that showed the First Lady of France slapping her husband, Emmanuel Macron. Do you have any world leader to world leader marital advice on Macron?
Make sure the door remains closed. That was not good. That was not good. No, I spoke to him, and he's fine. They're fine. They're two really good people. I know them very well, and I don't know what that was all about, but I know them very well, and they're fine.
Okay, so in response to the question, we see two things non-verbally. One, we see this no head shake with his head. So instantly, some kind of, negative, like, doubt, or this isn't a good thing, or some kind of negativity. And at the very same time, we see a very tight-lipped smile. Now, I'm going to tell you what that normally means when we see that, but then we're going to talk specifically about Donald Trump. So a tight-lipped smile, usually, socially, when you're having a conversation, you ask something, you say something, and there's this tight smile, often with a big inhale, but this kind of tight smile, not relaxed, we're not showing the teeth, this kind of thing, usually implies some kind of disagreement or some opinion that the person doesn't want to say, some kind of withheld thing. In fact, tight lips is one of the things that I call out the most often and the most certainly when I'm doing a cold reading on stage for entertainment. Whenever we're talking about something and I'm talking about a situation and I see someone's lips get tight, instantly I'll go to, there's something about this that you don't want to share, you're not comfortable sharing, or you'd rather keep to yourself. And the hit ratio on that is very, very high. In fact, I recently wrapped up a residency run at the Venetian in Las Vegas at the Palazzo Theater. A lot of you came to see the show, and on one of the nights, I don't know if any of you were there, I asked a couple on stage where they met. And immediately, as a response to the question, I saw the woman with a tight-lipped smile. Pretty tight lip, bit of a smile. And this is an unusual place to see that, because usually I ask where they met, and it's, we went at the movies, we went at a party, they just go right away to this happy memory. But here there was a compression, something she didn't want to share. So usually when that happens, I immediately go to, you met in a place that's different from most couples, and you don't always share this, or you don't always tell everyone. And in that case, it was a complete hit. They acknowledged that's exactly what was happening, only because I saw that tight lip. Now, the reason I say we have to talk about President Trump is because in his case, this is a very common smile that he does. He does it socially, he does it when he greets the audience. He often smiles this way with that kind of tight-lipped smile. So in his case, it's a little trickier. Is this just a smile because, people are laughing, it's an awkward situation, so this is just a normal smile for him? Or is it a bit of a withheld opinion? That's why we're seeing the lips thin out. Well, if we look at that no gesture and the pause and the hesitation, it's possible that that thinning of the lips, despite the fact that he often smiles this way, in this case could be because he's not really sure what to comment in this case. So when he finally does answer, what does he say? He says, make sure the door stays closed.
Make sure the door remains closed.
So he goes almost to a joke, but at the same time he's saying, these things can happen, just make sure that the private things stay private. So that was something that was going on between the two of you. Whatever it was, make sure the doors stay closed.
Make sure the door remains closed. That was not good.
The next statement that he makes is, that was not good. So that gives us a lot more information, but it also makes me ask two very important questions. The first one is, are you saying that wasn't good as in the situation wasn't good, or the way it looked wasn't good? It's not very clear. Oh yeah, that wasn't a good look. Is that what he means? Or, oh, that was not a good situation. Very unclear, very important distinction. The second question that I'm curious about at this point of the statement, because he's only said, keep the door closed, that was not good, is, are you saying that was not good as an observer, or have you talked to someone? Do you have inside information? Because there's a difference there. If it's just as an observer, then he's just giving an opinion. That wasn't good. It wasn't a good look. So it clarifies a little bit more. But if he spoke to someone and he has inside information, that's much more of a statement. And we're going to get the answer to that question coming right up. But these are all really good things to keep in mind. Whenever you ask someone a question, especially an important question, when you're trying to figure something out, always ask yourself if the response answered your question and didn't answer your entire question, and get really critical about it. So in this case, keep the doors closed. Okay, well, that didn't answer the question. It wasn't good. Okay, that kind of answers the question, but how much information do you actually have? So now he says that he spoke to him.
That was not good. That was not good. No, I spoke to him, and he's fine too. They're fine.
And for me, the moment he said that he spoke to him, we go back to that was not good, and now we know that's more than an opinion, that's a statement. That was not a good situation. He means it was a bad situation, and he means that he has inside information because he spoke to the French president. And then to really drive it home, he says, he's fine, they're two really good people. And this has a lot of stuff going on in there. First of all, he's fine, they're fine. We normally say this about a couple who's having an argument, right? If you witness a couple having an argument that I know, you might ask me afterwards, like, what happened? Are they okay? Oh, they're fine, they're going to be fine. Like, this is what he's saying. He's fine, they're fine. Why would he say he's fine, they're fine, if it wasn't an altercation, if it was in fact playful? Nobody checks in to see if someone's fine after they've been playful. The other really interesting thing is, as he's saying he's fine, we see a very clear shoulder shrug as the head is gesturing no like this. He's fine, they're fine. Now, there's a lot of really great research on shrugging, ironically from France, by researcher Camille Debras, and she found that anytime we see a shrug, whether it's with the shoulders, the hands, the mouth, that head tilt, the eyebrows, all these different parts contribute to a shrug, it denotes a disengagement. I don't something. And very often it's, I don't know what to say, or I don't know what to add to what's already out there. So you'll notice even as I'm talking about it, it's happening. I'm shrugging and my head is going no, because it's very common to see this, I don't know what to say. He's fine. They're going to be fine. So it's very likely that it's just this engagement from that knowledge of like, yeah, I don't know what else to say. They're going to be fine. It's all good. Speaking of no gestures, let's address this really quickly because there's a really big narrative on social media that anytime you see someone do a no gesture while they're talking, it's because they're lying. 100% they're being deceptive. First of all, there isn't a single gesture on this planet that indicates with certainty that someone's being deceptive, least of all this gesture, because it could have a lot of different meanings. It can mean that the person's being deceptive or don't agree with what they're saying, but it can mean a lot of other things too. Think about what would happen if you experienced something really unbelievable. It could even be positive. Like you ate something really good and I ask you how it was and you go, it was the best thing I've ever eaten. Like, I don't know what else to say. I've never had anything like this. So yes, it suggests some kind of inner conflict, but it could be disappointment, it could be disagreement, it could be disapproval. Like, I tell you something and you're like, I can't believe something like that would happen. Or even as you're telling a story, if you disapprove of it, you might do this. So there's a lot of other things. So in this case, does it mean for sure if he's doing this, oh my God, they're not going to be fine, they're going to get a divorce for sure? Not necessarily. It can mean that, but it can also mean, I don't really know what to say, or it really shouldn't have happened in front of the camera. It could be a lot of things causing this no gesture in that moment. Then Trump does a classic Trump move where he says, I know them very well, two very good people, I know them very well.
Two really good people, I know them very well. And I don't know what that was all about.
And this is something he often inserts into conversation. When he's talking about someone, he throws it in there that he knows them very well, good friend of mine, we go way back, and often talks about the people he knows and the connections that he makes. And this is something we pay a lot of attention to in profiling. This is a little side note because it's very important. Some people, when they talk, will talk about who they know and who they're friends with and who they're connected to. And this is a signal that the connections that they make are very important to them. They are somebody who put value on connections. And of course, as a businessman, as a politician, the people he knows and the people he's friends with are very important. So whenever in the real world you hear that, you can make a little note and understand that this person who you know and the people you're connected to will help you connect with this person as well. Especially if you have friends in common, that's going to be a really good way to form a relationship with this type of a person. Anyways, that was a little side note, but he goes on to say, I don't know what that was all about, but I know them very well and he's fine. So again, I don't know what that was all about. Pretty much a confirmation that it wasn't just them, playfully messing around, because that wouldn't be about anything. Like, no part of what the president is saying here, after having spoken to the French president, is, oh, you know what? We were all very off on that. They were just having a playful moment. None of what he's saying. And that's the important thing. After having spoken to him. If he said he hadn't spoken to him, I'd say, okay, well, he's just sharing an opinion like the rest of us. But there's quite a bit more weight on some of the stuff he's saying because he spoke to Macron. So he's saying all this stuff with that knowledge. I think the really important takeaway from this case is clusters. We are so often talking about clusters of behavior on the channel, and this is such a great example of why they're so important. Because here we're trying to determine if this is an actual negative argument or if it's playful. So if it was just one of these things, right? If it was just a shove, or if it was just a social smile, or if it was just a smile wiping away, or it was just the dominant foot coming back, or it was just, the two staff members being avoidant, if it was just the president saying it's not good, but they're going to be fine, and all these different things that he said about the situation. If it was any one of these things, we could go, okay, maybe it's playful, maybe that's not important enough. But when all these things are happening at the same time, given the same situation, the fact that she didn't take his arm, this whole list of things, it's very, very unlikely that the conclusion that this was an actual negative altercation is incorrect. It seems like there's too much supporting it, and that's why clusters are so important. One behavior, two behaviors, not conclusive. But when we see a lot of things that align with the same conclusion, then we could get a lot more confidence. So yeah, when I first saw the footage and heard the statement that they're being playful, I looked at it like there really isn't much supporting the fact that they're playful at all. But then after I heard the interview with Trump, I was like, yeah, I'm locking it in. It really, really doesn't line up with that being playful. Both verbally and non-verbally, pretty much nothing supports that except for the statement, which I also think was kind of silly. First of all, them coming out and saying that it was AI, already your credibility is out the window. Then for them to come back and go, oh, you know what? It wasn't AI, but they were just being playful. Look, I'm not a political or PR consultant, so I don't really know how to handle these things. But just purely logically, I feel like if they were to just honestly come out and say, yeah, the camera caught a little marital spat, happens to all of us, they're fine, it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, we would know that they had an argument, but at least we'd have our own opinions on that argument, and some would be fine, others maybe not, I don't really know. But it seems to me like by going this route, they really haven't dissuaded me at least, or that many people publicly from believing it was an actual argument. But on top of that, they've added a lie. So it's like two negatives, right? So I don't really know what the positive intention is of being deceptive about what it was. I don't know if when they said that statement, I don't know if a lot of people looked at it and went, oh, okay, it was playful. Okay, forget it, I was wrong. I don't know, maybe that's the intention, maybe it worked, no clue. But let me know in the comments what you think. Is there a chance, or are there any indications that this was playful and it was just one giant misunderstanding, that they were just kind of teasing and, it got blown out of proportion? Or on the other hand, are there other indications that you saw that made you go, no, I really don't think it's playful? So let me know in the comments which behaviors, both verbal and nonverbal, shaped your opinion the most when it comes to this situation. Whether we covered them, whether we didn't talk about them, what are the things that you saw that made you go, oh, okay, here's what I think is going on here, and what do you think is going on here? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you on the next one.